Hello. So every year I try to do Inktober, which is a drawing challenge. And, I figure this year I'll kind of go through my sketchbook and I might give a couple tips here on how I go about making my artwork. So this is the final piece from last year's Inktober. Check out my Frankenstein video for that. And the first day's Inktober was called Dreams. And I thought about how I don't really dream very often, it seems. And so my head is kind of like a black hole of dreams. So I thought I'd go with a little bit of a body horror theme over the course of the Inktober. I don't know why. It just kind of felt like it started off that way, and I kind of rolled through with it. I kind of decided to mix things up a bit with, this is from like a J. Crew catalog, and removed the face, covered it with spiders. Similarly, this is a men's fashion photo shoot mixed with some medical illustration on a surreal landscape for Path. And I was trying to shoot for a very hard light on this. I kind of screwed up the positioning of the black shadows on this, but don't tell anyone. Very thing-oriented. Obviously messed up on this one. This was supposed to just be a map, as in a medical illustration, a map of the body. I was not feeling it this day. Did not turn out anywhere near what I wanted it to be. So sometimes the body horror element is very subtle with the eyeballs within the necklace on this. I also tried to make the female forms feel less beautiful and more severe with the lighting and angles. And I wanted to do something that was a little double entendre, a bit of innuendo with drip here. So I went with this. And again, following up with my kind of angular forms, but trying to be more sensual. This one was essentially a picture of a cane toad that I found, and I just loved the form of it. So this is very much directly from the photograph. I had very little time for this one, and so I went directly to inks without doing any pencils or layouts. And so the bouncy castle here is just a bouncy castle. But I love the child stuck in there in the middle as a kind of Easter egg there. When I was doing research on Fortune, I came across a Fortune magazine cover of Sam Bankman-Fried, mixed with pictures of him being extradited from the Bahamas. And so I thought I should do a new version of the cover of Fortune with his picture of him in handcuffs being taken to the US to face trial. And this one was also a very short timeline where I really just wanted to see how I could translate a photograph from a music video from Xenias called Follow the Body. And so this is very much based off of that still. And I kind of consider this to be a bit of a body horror theme where, we have a child who's gotten into the Cheetos but didn't realize they were habanero Cheetos. And so they're not so happy with the spicy food that they found. So this guy here is named Daggerjaw, and he will use his jaw full of daggers to destroy adventurers and heroes attempting to enter its cave, and then it will push the swords and daggers of the slain heroes into its jaw and create a reinforced, more deadly weapon. So this is very much inspired by Junji Ito's The Hanging Balloons, where you have these creepy heads with nooses floating around town, trying to kill the people they look like. The prompt was angel, which made me think about the bizarre cherub heads. And so I kind of took the cherub heads of Italian Renaissance and mixed them with the hanging balloons of Junji Ito. And that's the end of Sketchbook 1. If you're curious, these are Etcher sketchbooks. Very nice. I believe these are cold press, 140 pound cotton papers. All right, so on to Sketchbook 2. So for the prompt demon, I thought, many of us have the demon of technology looming over us. One of the reasons why I like doing Inktober and doing it on paper is I'm not staring at a screen all day and get a break from that. So here I am. This is a self-portrait in a sense. This uses some really great fantasy art reference for composition, and then using some other different artwork for reference for the monster to kind of try to work on the concept of scale and try to make the feeling of this massive monster, Frost Demon. The Catholic Church loves its riches, and I think the Greek Orthodoxy, as I learned when I was looking through the reference, has some very ornate costumes and rituals, it seems. So I used that as reference on a lot of the accessories here. And the cross is actually very similar to an actual cross that I believe the Vatican has. And again, body horror, but in a different realm. The concept of a very scratchy sweater can be quite horrible to your body. I wanted to create a concept of a celestial being and kind of contrast it with small microbes. And I felt that the ocean life and jellyfish that are in the sea are great, cool looking things. And I found some great jellyfish with lots of wispy tendrils and decided to make it city sized. Shallow could mean a lot of things, but I thought, why not put it towards cooking? And instead of cooking a normal meal, maybe have some shallow fried eyeballs for dinner. when searching for ref, sometimes you get surprised by what you find, and so whenever you look for the dangerous things, you will find these top 10 lists that are just utterly ridiculous with these utterly terrible photoshopped fictional characters or creatures. And so I thought, why not mix that with a face hugger and make the cutest little face hugger that you can react to. Did not have a lot of time for this one, so I worked simply in silhouette and quickly threw together a beast. Well, Massive Attack was an obvious reference for me when I saw massive as the prompt. These two have been making some of my favorite music for quite a while. They don't release much, but go check them out. Rush can mean a lot of things, but for me and Lisa, who I did Inktober with, Rush was very specific to our friend Chris's dog, Rush. And so we did a portrait of him. And lastly, we have Fire. And to go with the body horror theme, I really wanted to do something surreal and somewhat unclear on purpose, right? I wanted it to be difficult to see what it was that was being burned. But this is a monster very much inspired by John Carpenter's The Thing on Fire. And that was my Inktober. I hope you found that interesting. Thanks for watching. So the first step here for me is to create a ref board with information and things that I am interested in and relate to the subject matter. So you'll see that I pull very directly sometimes inspiration from different things and use those as the basis of my work. And so I put this all on a Moreau board, and this contains pretty much all of my ref for pretty much all of my projects, just in one board. I only use one board for all of these items. With my ref board up on my phone, I will frequently be doing quick gestural drawings and ideating, trying to figure out what exactly it is I want to draw. I want to interpret the reference and give it some kind of really interesting perspective. I want the subject matter to mean something to me and not just be a copy of what I'm looking at. For those interested in what I use, most of my inking is done with brush, and so I like to use things like this number 6 Princeton round. I also like to use flat brushes pretty frequently for larger areas. As you can tell from the darkness of these two, these are the main brushes that I'm using here. So highly recommend these two, number 6 and that. This is a very thick brush, so I don't have as much control. So sometimes I'll go for a thinner brush. I also will have used those for, white inks and things too. So I use these black wings, but I usually actually prefer these 602s. I like to use these non-photo blue pencils. Sometimes I use them for shading. I use them for shading on my previous Inktober almost exclusively. When I use a pen, I usually like to use these Fudenosuke's for thicker lines and brush-like lines. And it's got a really nice tip there as well. And it lasts very well, very long. So highly recommend these. I also highly recommend buying them directly from Fudenosuke. Don't go through third-party resellers, because I've found they sell old versions of these, or like rip-offs, fakes. So buy these direct. When I need a thin line, I like to use the Copic Mozi Liner 0.5. These are great for thin cross-hatching and small fine details. I've had issues with things like these pots of ink. I had a accident where the Speedball Super Black just squeezed out ink all over the place. So I transferred my ink pots over to these tattoo ink bottles, which is significantly better than the actual pots. They are much less prone to leaking, and they're much easier to apply to the actual pans that I use. And here you can see this is the guide I use to determine the correct amount of wash I want to use. So 2 drop here, 5 drop, 10 drop, 15, 30, and 60 is the bottles that I've pre-mixed for purposes of painting for Inktober.
Hey, you made it this far, huh? Well, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. I will try to post more videos like this in the future if there's interest. Let me know if you got any questions down in the comments. And yeah, thanks for watching.